Well, the Royal Rumble is just 3 weeks away, but you wouldn't really know it, according to WWE this week, as it was barely mentioned. And yes, we had a big SmackDown happen in Germany, a massive title change that many of us did not see coming, but it's one that I'm not complaining about. Just because I didn't see it coming doesn't mean I don't think it's the right choice. As Cody Rhodes drops the belt to Drew McIntyre in fairly surprising fashion. The way he lost the belt, of course, does protect him and brings Jacob Fatu into the mix. And you do wonder where that's going to lead, because Jacob Fatu is still, kind of on the cusp of main event, but not really there. And if he challenges for the championship, there's no chance that he's going to win it. I mean, just absolutely none at this point. And Drew finally wins. And it was a hell of a victory as far as just the magnitude of what it meant for Drew McIntyre, the magnitude of what it meant for the title picture going into the Rumble and beyond, into WrestleMania. I fully expect Drew McIntyre to be undisputed champion going into WrestleMania 42. The question then, of course, becomes, who's his opponent? Is it just one-on-one Cody Rhodes, Drew McIntyre again? Did they bring Jacob Fatu into the mix? Is it Roman? A lot of questions, very few answers. But I think things are going to ramp up in a really big way this coming week, with the Royal Rumble just a few weeks away, less than 3 weeks as I record this. So they have to do a lot of promotion at this point, get us excited, maybe think about who could be positioning for having a match for number 30. I don't really like when they do that, where the winner will be positioned as number 30. That always takes a lot of the steam, I think, out of number 30, which many people now think it could be Chris Jericho, and it very well could be. Chris Jericho seemingly is about to debut or re-debut or return rather to WWE. Do I expect him to win anything, any championships? No, I don't. I really don't. Not anyway, before WrestleMania, I should say. After WrestleMania, different animal. Maybe a mid-card belt, maybe have some fun with Punk, that kind of thing. Revisit some older programs, and that's kind of where I think Chris Jericho's career will end, is in WWE in maybe a year's time or two on a part-time schedule. And again, we have a lot of time before I think we have to think about Chris Jericho retiring, but with AJ Styles on deck, with potentially Brock Lesnar on deck of who could retire next, Chris Jericho is definitely on that list. So much going on, and including this week in WWE, we have a new pair of women's tag team champions, or a single pair of women's tag team champions in Rhea Ripley and Io Sky, who won them through the Kabuki Warriors on Monday Night Raw. That was I think a much needed title change from the Kabuki Warriors, but we have a lot going on. Again, return of LA Knight potentially on deck. Chris Jericho, returning to WWE. We've got the Royal Rumble itself. We've got a potential return of Seth Rollins in about a month's time at best. I think will be mid-February, but could be later than that, even into March, leading, of course, into April, which WWE has positioned WrestleMania a few weeks later than it normally does. So give Seth even more time to recuperate and figure out how they're going to integrate him into storylines and all that. And of course, how is the follow-up this week going to happen with Bron Breakker and CM Punk, with Bron Breakker outright losing to CM Punk on Monday Night Raw in a match that was filled with botches, rookie mistakes, which, not criticizing, just what it is. It's what you expect from a guy like this, who's over intense, over amped. It's the equivalent of, if you are a MLB fan, you have a rookie who is in the playoffs and doesn't have the experience of being there before and is over amped. And on the mound, while they may have dominated in the regular season, they get to the playoffs and they just forget where the strike zone is. They're overcharged, they're overthrowing, and they just don't have that mindset to just do what you normally do and, don't worry about the moment. Just pitch, as you normally would. And it's easier said than done. But it's the same kind of thing here. I think what we saw with Bron Breakker on Monday Night Raw, with some of the botches that were not CM Punk's fault. I think Punk was doing what he needed to do. Just glad that nobody actually got hurt. Even more importantly than that, as I said, though, with CM Punk beating Bron Breakker clean, that really, I think, sets the tone moving forward of where Bron Breakker is going to be when it comes to who could win the Rumble or the Chamber, as there's two paths to the belt at WrestleMania. I don't believe Bron Breakker is in position to win the belt. I think he's on course for a returning Seth Rollins one-on-one in a revenge type of program with how Seth left. You have Bronson Reed in the background, and he continues to be in the background, but that's okay. I think Bron Breakker is still your guy, the chosen one, so to speak. And he and Seth presumably will have a hell of a match at WrestleMania. Nice story going in. And that puts Bron Breakker, I think, on the shelf in terms of contenders for the top belt or belts until after WrestleMania. And that's okay. I don't need to rush Bron Breakker into a title scenario. He clearly needs a little bit more polishing, but I think we're still on track despite the botches on the Monday Night Raw main event. So with all that being said, what's going on, everybody? Thank you for joining me here on this Sunday, January 11th, 2026, as we are about to approach the Royal Rumble in a few weeks, and we have a great offer for you guys on Patreon right now at patreon.com/WWE podcast. For just $3 a month, you get everything we do ad-free. That's dozens of shows per month, including the entire library that's available to you for the shows that we've posted. And that's available to you at Patreon. All right. Well, we're also going to answer emails. We have one or two here, and any voicemails that we received on the back end of the show because we didn't have a traditional mailbag on Friday. So let's go into SmackDown. Now, again, if you haven't heard SmackDown, check out Amanda's review that she did and I posted on Friday. And also check out the main event show that is put up every week by Daniel from Australia. Really a good review, and happy to have him as part of the team as well. So check it out. The main event review, SmackDown review, all of them are available in terms of library. If you're looking to go back and just kind of have a marathon of audio, it's all there. So let's talk about SmackDown, because that's the show that we did not go over. At least I didn't, because Amanda has always done a great job of it. But I'll throw in my 2 cents and my analysis of SmackDown. Now, not a fan of the SmackDown 3-hour business, never have been. I'm not a fan of the 3-hour format, no matter what the show is, unless it's a PLE. But I don't like the 3-hour format. I don't think many people would argue that, even live, as fun as it is being at an event most of the time live, it doesn't lend itself to be the more is better result. Just because you're there longer doesn't mean you're going to be more satisfied with the event. And they're clearly doing it for just ad revenue, sponsorship time, and it's all about money. Anytime you have to consider why TKO is doing something that they're doing with the WWE, if you're ever just perplexed and you're sitting there going, well, I don't know about that. Why would they do this? Why would they do that? I don't get this. This is kind of weird. If you ever have to say that to yourself, just come back to the tried and true reason for TKO existing at all. And that's to make money. And yes, at its core, for every for-profit organization, the idea is to make money. But TKO is more forthright and transparent, I think is the word, with that objective. They tout right in fans' faces how much they've made. We've made the most, this is a record-breaking gate, meaning like we made the most money off of you clowns compared to any other crowd in Raw history or whatever. Instead of just doing fan attendance, they're talking about how much money they made on the air from fans in attendance. I mean, the gall and the arrogance you have to have, and the complete transparency or lack of shame that you have to throw it in fans' faces about that is really just incredible. No one's throwing any backlash at WWE. I seem to be the only lone sole voice in that. But my point about all that is, if you ever have to be wondering why WWE, moreover TKO, is doing something, just put it through the lens of, well, how would they make the most money? How are they making the most money off of this particular choice? And you'll get your answer. So anyway, let's go back to SmackDown. We'll go through this fairly quickly. We have Randy Orton come out off the top, and he said it felt good to be back in the ring. And the German fans, they're hyped up as expected. And he was quickly interrupted by Trick Williams. Didn't really get to say much. I mean, he's on the Jade Cargill schedule here. And fans chanted for whoop that Trick. And he ended up getting booed because it's Randy Orton. And said he wasn't sure about Germany, but every other country loves Trick Willie. And Orton says he sees a star when he looks at Williams, saying he has the look and the gift of gab. And Orton said that Trick's interrupting made him wonder if Trick has the brain to go along with the other attributes. And said he respects Orton. Trick said that, and so much that he came all the way to put him on notice. Trick said it's not the year of the Viper, it's the year of Trick Williams. And Orton said he didn't know what they were teaching him in NXT, but someone should have told him never to turn his back on the Viper. And Orton said he'd let that one pass, but if it happened again, you kind of guess what would happen. And then that's when he tossed the microphone down and knocked the one out of Orton's hand. Orton punched Trick and then hit him with an uppercut. Orton put Trick down with a DDT, and then Miz ran in and attacked Orton from behind, who ends up getting an RKO. Trick Williams does not get an RKO, but certainly deserves one. I mean, I really don't see the excitement of Trick Williams. Well, I shouldn't say that. I understand why people like Trick Williams, because he's very gimmicky. He's much more flash than he is substance. And he is the embodiment, I think, of what wrestling is in 2026. He's a lot of just presence, but not a lot of depth. And I know that's like, what are you talking about? He can wrestle. Yeah, he can. But I feel like he's leaning too much on how his character or how his gimmick is. He seems very much gimmicky. I don't know how else to put it. He doesn't feel authentic. He feels like a character from a cartoon or something. And I may change my tune on Trick Williams. To be fair, I didn't really watch him much in NXT, which is why I used to have an NXT host, because I didn't watch it. But from what I've seen on the main roster, he's in his own head. I don't believe him. I don't feel like he's himself. Maybe that's really the problem. Feels like he's playing a character, and this isn't really Trick Williams, whoever that is, or whoever this extension of his personality is. He thought of this character that's outlandish and over the top, and he's going with it, but it doesn't really have, it's not really, what's the word I'm looking for? Authentic is a problem, or authenticity is a problem, but it doesn't feel like it's different than any other character right now, if that makes sense. I don't know. When I find the words, I'll come back, and as we say in the corporate world, right, we'll circle back. But that's something about Trick I don't find appealing, and I don't believe it. But hey, he's fairly new. If you've never watched him, then there's a lot of time. Young guy, could certainly be the face of the company in 5 to 10 years, maybe sooner, depending on things and how they roll out. But Trick Williams, they clearly have a lot of high hopes with, because they put him in the first segment with a legend in the business and Randy Orton. So, okay. And then the Miz gets RKO'd. Who cares? I mean, I say that because the Miz character, as you guys know, it's been dead for a long time. I have no real connection to the Miz. I don't see the appeal in the Miz. It's rinse and repeat and rinse and repeat. And then you rinse and repeat again. And then what you do with the Miz, because this is all that seemingly that this character has, is then you rinse and repeat, because that's what the Miz is. And it's not that he's not talented. It's just the end result. You don't believe he's ever going to be a real top guy, and he never has been. So we've all been right, or at least I know I have, only because I've been saying it forever. And I don't find him particularly exciting to watch. If I see him on TV, I have no problem skipping his segment. He's not ever been a guy that you're going to gravitate to and be a numbers guy where he's pulling in more ratings because he's on TV. Many guys aren't that, but the Miz has been there for so long now that you can definitively say that this guy is not going to show us probably anything else different. He's been a babyface, and he was actually fairly successful as that. And that's been about 15% of his career, because the other 85%, he's more, he's a heel. But the Miz, I don't know. Not my thing. Now, Randy Orton, to get some positivity, yeah. That guy's still got a good few years left in him if they play the cards right. And he plays the cards right and barring injury. Okay, let's move on. I'm going to just kind of fly through this a little bit here because I feel like I'm getting off on tangents. So, all right. Let's go to McIntyre. He recalled the look on the face of Cody when he set the picture of him with his father on fire. And McIntyre said he can only imagine the look on Cody's face when he sees this. And McIntyre showed off the watch that the late Dusty Rhodes had to pawn when he blew the family fortune to pay for his kid's future. That's great. McIntyre said Cody would get himself disqualified in the first part of the 3 stages of hell and then will finally become the champion. So just more great stuff from Drew. And Julia took on Alexa Bliss for the Women's U.S. Championship. Julia beats Alexa Bliss in 7 minutes and 15 seconds to retain the U.S. Championship. After the match, Legend and Nia Jax enter the ring, and Legend punches Bliss, and then Jax hit her with an Annihilator. So more heat put here on Legend and Nia Jax, who needed it. I think they did. We have Legend who's still trying to find her footing here and has found a home with Nia Jax, but they need to go on some kind of hot streak here to continue their momentum as a tag team and continue just overall the momentum of the women's tag team division that has, as of late, maybe been the hottest it's ever been since it's been created. So I have no issue here with Julia beating Alexa Bliss, become or to retain the women's U.S. Championship. I mean, she just won it also. So you don't want to play hot potato with it. So we have then Kit Wilson show up with Nick Aldis after he was talking to Jordan Grace. And Wilson complained that he didn't know who his opponent was last week. He said Matt Cardona is the embodiment of toxic masculinity and asked Aldis what he was going to do about it. And Aldis said those were valid points and told Wilson to hold his thought. Then entered his office and slammed the door. He just told Aldis that he's toxic. Okay. So he's just playing off the toxic masculinity just nonsense that unfortunately is integrated into our culture today, because any masculinity apparently is toxic, which again, I don't want to get into here, but okay. We start the second hour here of SmackDown, and Byron Saxton interviews Matt Cardona, and he spoke about how he chose to bust his ass to get back to WWE. And he spotted Cody Rhodes, who was sitting on a nearby production crate. He hugged him, and Cody was booed by a lot of fans, which was interesting. And they sang Drew McIntyre's name, and Cardona said he came back for the championship, and Cody said they would talk once he finishes with McIntyre. So Cardona eyeing the WWE Championship. Interesting position given where he was when he was first in WWE, which was essentially kind of a mid-card joke. He never really was taken seriously. Remember the whole stuff with Kane and Eve? Was it Eve Torres? Maybe I'm getting that wrong. But he was pushed off stage by Kane in a wheelchair. That's like the only memory I have of Matt Cardona. Whatever. Okay. So let's continue. So we have video packages, the Wyatt Six and the MFTs, and then right on cue, we get a Solo, Tala Tonga, Tonga Loa, and JC Mateo taking on the Wyatt Six in an 8-man tag team match, which lasted 10 minutes and 20 seconds as the MFTs beat the Wyatt Six. And they did that after Tama went for Howdy, who caught him in position for his finish, but Tala Tonga breaks it up with a big boot, and then Tama Tonga hits the cutthroat on Howdy before getting the victory. And after the match, Solo looked at the lantern and said, "I got the whole world in my hands," and taunting, obviously, the famous Bray Wyatt line. And I don't know what this was supposed to do, to be honest with you. This was that's the match that you would sell at a PLE, like these 4 guys against one another, these 8 guys against one another. That's what you kind of look for at a PLE, and they gave it away in 10 minutes. Not a bad match, an okay match. I never really felt that this program was going to be ultra exciting. It has been more interesting at times than others, but is this it? I don't know. I'm not sure. The analysis here, by the way, according to Pro Wrestling Net, shout out to them, said that, quote, when I was a kid and a heel would steal or destroy an item that were meaningful to the babyface, I always wondered why the babyface didn't just leave the item at home. Anyway, this mid-card feud doesn't do much for me, but the live crowds seem to react well to it. The crowd reacts to it because literally Bray Wyatt's spirit is still living through the Wyatt Six group. And the Lantern is still a connection back to Bray, despite the fact he's been dead now for multiple years. And I'm kind of bored by this now. The heels win. Okay, fine. I don't need to have the Wyatt Six come out on top just because they're the quote unquote good guy group. I'm fine with them losing. The Wyatt Six are not a very deep team when it comes to personalities and characters. They've tried here and there to get the crowd to understand who and what they are, but with such limited airtime and very few of those segments as a whole, difficult outside of, hey, we all loved Bray. So far, that's the only string tying all of us together is, yeah, we all loved Bray. Like, okay, yeah, we did. Anything else? And so far, the answer has been, not really. That's the problem here. But, all right. Moving on. And we got Jordynne Grace taking on Alba Fire. Very quick match, sadly. 2.5 minutes with Jordynne Grace beating Alba Fire after she hit a torture rack bomb. But that really wasn't what this segment was about. It was about introducing Jordynne Grace to Jade Cargill, who comes out as Grace was heading up the ramp or down back the stage. And she came out and walked around Grace. And Cargill said, quote, you think you did something? You think you're special? Well, now you're on my show and I'm that. Yeah, fill in the word. And she dropped the mic. And it's fun to see at least Jordynne Grace, face to face with somebody who's even more muscular than she is. And that's saying something. Jade obviously is a physical specimen that is once in a lifetime. And that's kind of primarily what she's leaned on her entire career and why WWE signed her, because they certainly didn't sign her for her in-ring or mic skills. They got 1 out of 3 and said, well, the 1 is so good, we might be able to develop 2 and 3. That's why they signed her from AEW. End of story. They did not sign her because, wow, look at her work rate. Oh, her ring psychology is on point. Man, that promo, I really felt that. No, she was missing 2 of the 3 in just fundamental qualities you have to have as a wrestler to be successful. And they saw 1, but that 1 was just so good. They said, man, we can't pass this up. We can't pass it up. Maybe we can develop the other 2. And have they? In ring, a little bit. And on the mic, not so much. She does say her lines okay, but I'll continue to hammer this home. They're so limited that you don't get anything out of it other than just, oh, okay, she's got an attitude. All right. Yeah, so does everyone else. We don't have anything from her, which is why when you hear her music, and Germany is kind to everybody. They'll give somebody, even if it's a opposite reaction of how they're portrayed in the story, they'll at least give them some kind of loud reaction. Jade gets a lukewarm reaction. And it's not even as if they've really started to boo her and say, oh, you suck. It's just, it's the same reaction she's gotten even as a babyface. And I was hoping when she turned heel that this would, turn around and things would really loosen up for her, because as a heel, you can just do much more. You don't have to worry about getting the crowd's adulation. You can just do your thing. If they boo you because you slipped up on a line, who cares? They're supposed to not like you. There's a lot more you can do, and the flexibility is a lot greater as a heel. And I was hoping that would really free her. And so far, the answer is not really. I don't think it's been a disaster, but it has not progressed at the rate that I'm sure even WWE was hoping it would. They still rely on, her physique. Wow, her physique. And she's the champion. She's the champion. And now she's got a line. Okay, I'm that, and that's fine. I was hoping for more at this point. I mean, it's been a couple of years and we're not much further along than we were 2 years ago. Okay. So despite that, I mean, I still believe Bianca Belair versus Jade Cargill is slated for WrestleMania. Okay. So Byron Saxton interviews Sami Zayn backstage and asked who he thinks will win the main event. And Zayn said he hated to admit it, but there was a small part of them that wanted Drew to win. And he said McIntyre is famously the one person he hasn't beaten, and beating him for the championship would be great. Zayn said he's rooting for Cody and said he's a great guy, and ultimately said that his money was on Cody, but the person who walks out of the match as champion needs to know that he's waiting on the other side. And Drew was shown seated backstage while Tessitore hyped the main event. Okay. So they're trying to position Sami Zayn in a world title position or a WWE Undisputed title position. I don't buy it. I mean, several months ago, I said Sami Zayn was maybe a top contender to win the Rumble. And I think he still is a contender. That's not out of the realm of possibility. Sami Zayn just doesn't feel right this year. Doesn't feel right. I mean, you could say the same about Jey Uso, and look where that landed him. He won the main event, and then WWE stripped him of the belt 2 months later. But still, he won, and he won. And they could do the same thing for Zayn. I guess they could do Sami Zayn versus Drew McIntyre. But be honest with yourself. Don't lie to yourself. Is Drew McIntyre versus Sami Zayn an enticing main event of WrestleMania? Don't lie. No one in this world would think that. I mean, you could make a case for so many other main events that have happened on free TV that were more enticing than Sami Zayn versus Drew McIntyre. Doesn't mean they couldn't do some extraordinary things in the ring and have a 5-star match. They could. But in terms of star power, no. Sami Zayn, once again, is not in the right position at the right time. He's once again a victim of circumstance and timing. And we've said that so many times for Drew. And I thought he was once again going to be a victim of that for the 14th time. But look what happened, right? He won the belt on SmackDown. Did anybody have on their bingo card for 2025 or 2026 Cody Rhodes dropping a major championship on SmackDown? I didn't. So kudos to WWE for doing it. Now we'll see what the plan is ultimately, where this whole path is taking us and why they did it on SmackDown. I have a sneaking suspicion it has a lot to do with the Royal Rumble, as it should, and ultimately WrestleMania. But with Drew McIntyre here, I hope that's not a hot title change and he ends up dropping it again and losing his mind. No, this should be finally a proper run for Drew that is long, long overdue. I understand Roman Reigns is coming back. We all know that. Could he still win the Rumble and challenge Drew? He could. He could. Could you have Roman Reigns win the Rumble and challenge CM Punk? You could. There's some contender. I mean, you could have LA Knight win the Rumble. You could have Sami Zayn win the Rumble. Is there anybody outside of Sami, Bron Breakker, and Roman Reigns that are an LA Knight that are real contenders to win the match this year? I mean, Chris Jericho is one. Chris Jericho would be a wild surprise, but look, at his age, that'd be insane to have him win the Rumble and go on to face anyone for the championship after being out of the company for like 7-8 years. That would be just stupid. I understand Chris Jericho's, a nostalgic act at this point in WWE, and he does have a lot of history in WWE, and I believe he'll end his career here. But no. Chris cannot be a serious contender, even if he comes in at number 30. Okay. So let's move on here because we got an email or so to get to. Let's see. We got some footage of the New York Giants running back Cam Scadaboo online video that featured him yelling while watching the 2K25 video game. Who cares? Although I will say, if you are into the video game aspect of wrestling, and I used to be very much, my life doesn't allow the time for that. The 2K26 video game should be being announced fairly soon. They like to release that around WrestleMania time, March-ish. And so I would think that in the next few weeks, maybe even at the Royal Rumble, you'll see an announcement date and some footage of the 2K26 video game. So just for those that care. All right. We then have, what's the next one? Shinsuke Nakamura take on Carmelo Hayes for the U.S. Championship. Good to see Shinsuke in a match one-on-one for a top title, and in a match that's 18 and a half minutes. But I guess that's what you can get, and that's what you can do when you have a 3-hour show. And it's not a bad thing. See, this is one of the good things about a 3-hour show is you get to put talent that otherwise wouldn't have as much time as they do onto the show in longer segments. And that's good. That's a plus. So did Shinsuke win? Of course not. Carmelo Hayes ends up beating Shinsuke to retain the title, and the finish was Nakamura going for a Kinshasa, but Carmelo catches him with the first 48 and then followed up with nothing but net and got the victory. So yeah, that's it. That's good. A good match for both men. Shinsuke was never going to win, but it was about kind of putting him in there with a guy that he knew could work with anybody, and that's what Shinsuke can do and offer talent at this point. And Carmelo Hayes is the up-and-coming star, and I think he is much more of a grounded version of Trick Williams. That makes sense. Does that make sense to anybody? Or am I crossing my wires here? That Carmelo Hayes feels like a more grounded, less gimmicky version of Trick Williams. Probably matched in athleticism. I think they certainly are both as athletic as you can possibly be. But the character part of them, that's how I view Carmelo versus Trick Williams, but could be just my warped brain. So we then have Cody's final thoughts backstage, and Cody said it's lazy when people bring his father or his father's legacy into things, and said he has his eyes on the Royal Rumble and that it means WrestleMania isn't far behind. He may be the only guy. Was he the only one to mention the Royal Rumble on SmackDown? I mean, my God, you have one of the most fan favorite PLEs coming up in a few weeks, and nobody even mentions it until Cody does. But it's funny too, really. So Cody says it's lazy when people bring up his father or his father's legacy into things. Really? Can we start bringing up chapter and verse every single time he brought up his dad when he was chasing the championship, trying to finish his story for 2 years? Should we, you sure you want to go down that road, bro? Cody Rhodes, I mean, yes, people brought it in, they did voluntarily bring up Dusty Rhodes. He was certainly brought up by other people first, and then Cody had to address it. But there are many promos that have started out over the last 2 years, WrestleMania 39, WrestleMania 40 stories that were constantly being brought up by Cody himself in the first instance about his dad. So shut your mouth, Cody. I mean, is he serious? It's lazy when people do that? You did it for 2 years, dude. So a video then aired of Nick Aldis announcing there will be 4 qualifying matches on next week's SmackDown in London, and the winners of those matches will face off in a fatal, or not a fatal, but a 4-way. I guess fatal 4-way. Do we not say fatal because it's... Did WWE take the word fatal out of the 4-way because they're worried that fatal means death? And am I wrong on that? And if that's true, why? I mean, sudden death is it's a turn of phrase. It's not actually literal, right? I mean, sudden death obviously could happen, but are we worried we're going to jinx the match and someone's going to drop dead? Are we worried there's going to be sponsors who are like, wait a minute, a fatal 4-way? You mean like versus just a regular 4-way? What's the difference? You mean someone's going to die in the fatal 4-way versus just a regular 4-way? I don't know. I could be just totally spitballing here, but it's out of nowhere. Suddenly it's just 4-way, no fatal anymore. But beside the point, those 4 people are going to face off in a 4-way at Saturday night's main event for a shot at the championship at the Royal Rumble. So that's cool. Yes, we have a Saturday night's main event. I don't care that actually is a pit stop before the Rumble in terms of if that's the reason why we're not talking about the Rumble because of Saturday night's main event. That's not a reason for me. The Royal Rumble should overshadow and just blow away Saturday night's main event. Saturday night main event should be kind of a afterthought. You got to start promoting the Rumble even at the behest of Saturday night's main event. Who cares about Saturday night's main event? But it's there and they're trying to build for it. And the winner is going to face the WWE champion at Rumble. And that could be Sami Zayn, could be Cody Rhodes, could be a triple threat. Many people are proposing a triple threat somehow. So we have the following matches listed for next week's SmackDown in London. Randy Orton versus The Miz, Matt Cardona versus Trick Williams, Damian Priest versus Solo Sikoa, and Sami Zayn versus Dragunov. Good matches. Good, solid matches, good wrestling matches. Good. All right. Cody Rhodes then takes on Drew McIntyre in a 3 stages of hell match. The first fall happened at 3 minutes and 40 seconds after Drew low blowed Cody and hit him with a claymore behind the ref's back to go up 1-0. So, again, this is always funny to me that if this was a standard match, Cody would have lost the belt in 3.5 minutes if there was just a typical 1 fall. But we all know it's going to go 3, so you know Cody's going to get the second one, and he does after Cody placed McIntyre on the broadcast table, and he hit a crossroads on the announce table to get the victory at 13-minute mark. So 10 minutes later, Cody gets a fall. It's now tied at 1-1. And Cody, I mean, take a look at that crossroads on the table. I mean, McIntyre did the best you could to sell it. But the crossroads, I mean, it's such a crappy move. A crappy looking move. I mean, Drew didn't take any of the fall there. It's all Cody landing on his back. Doesn't look good. Even in real time, even if they sped it up, it doesn't look good. Not the telltale sign of a really effective finish, but okay. I'm screaming into the void. Then we get a steel cage match. And the match was fine. I mean, we had a superplex off of the cage, which was cool. It ended with, as we all know, with Jacob Fatu being a guy in a hoodie. The WWE is on the hoodie train now, with the first reveal of Austin Theory, which seemingly no one gives a damn about right now. And Jacob Fatu shows up because remember Drew's and Cody's logic that, oh, well, the third will be no one can interfere. At what point are we going to stop hearing that narrative? Well, probably never. Oh, the steel cage, no one can get out, no one can get in. It's to prevent interference. If anything, I would argue, and the stats will easily back this up, there is more interference in steel cage matches than any other match type in WWE history. I really believe that. Maybe a close second would be like a regular no DQ match. Those happen more frequently too. But I really don't recall. Can anyone recall just a steel cage match that had absolutely no interference from anyone? Steel cage, I have just a fundamental issue with steel cage matches, from how they're promoted and sold to the crowd to how you can actually win the match, which is just the fact that you can just walk out the door is stupid. But hey, the ultimate result here, Jacob Fatu attacks Drew, but also, after Cody, cut him off inside the cage, he ended up beating down Cody, which allowed Drew to slip out. And Drew's champion. So the 2 falls that Drew got over Cody were very hanky-panky, right? It was very much to protect Cody. Their golden boy is still protected because how Drew won the first one wasn't even legit, because he had to low blow Cody first and then hit the Claymore. So once again, they just refused to allow Drew to just win this in a brutal fashion fairly. And yes, the third fall was legal because interference is legal in a steel cage match. But still, it's because of Jacob Fatu that Cody Rhodes has dropped the belt. So Cody's probably not going to be happy with Jacob, and we'll see how that dynamic plays out. So Drew is your champion. Crowd wasn't really into this at 31 minutes here. And that was, I think, a nice finish here. Now, does this mean that, again, Drew is automatically going to WrestleMania as champion? No, it doesn't. Drew could certainly drop the belt. I hope he doesn't, but we shall see. Okay, so here we go. We're going to go to the emails here, and let's start with Chris from Canada. I don't know if this is supposed to be on the mailbag, but we're going to put it on anyway because it doesn't have any, super personal, information, and I think it's okay. So this is from Chris. He says, love the creative AI experiment episode. Well, I'm glad you did. Yeah, that was kind of an ad lib thing. If you didn't see it, I was, or you don't see it on the feed. It was the 2026 WWE predictions according to AI. And a lot of them were just hilariously bad. And I commented on them. Now, let's go to, let's see, show ideas. So you have some show ideas. TNA show recaps. They deserve your attention. Great wrestling promotion. Could riff off comparisons that make WWE look lame and TNA look good. Hey, I have no problem with that. The question is, who wants to host them? Because I don't have time. I don't have the time to much less watch any clips barely versus watching full episodes and then having to do a podcast on it. So if anybody wants to take off and run with that, with the TNA, email me, guys. More War on Truth, Canadian focused, like Moose on the Loose podcast. Well, here, Chris, here's the thing. The War on Truth, which is as if you don't know, guys, is not wrestling. It's much more culture, politics, and that kind of thing. Very controversial in today's climate, because no matter what stance you pick, some people are going to love you, some people are going to hate you. But when it comes to Canadian focused content, I will say that I don't know enough about Canadian politics to speak intelligently on it. And I don't want to come on and just fudge stuff or AI stuff, and it's not really my thoughts. I'm just regurgitating what I saw or heard, right? I want to make sure that I understand what's going on. And when that happens for specific events, I'll do that. I know that there have been certain things in the past that I haven't really talked about with Canada that maybe I dab my toe into, like how, your prime minister there decided to take away, your right to own a handgun, period. Right. I mean, things like that are just ridiculous. The protests that ended with, remember, they're truck drivers and then they all got punished. That thing that happened a few years back, and some other stuff, like your healthcare system's broken, even though it's universal healthcare, and everybody in the U.S. that's a liberal wants to make sure that everybody should have healthcare. Yet the quality of care for universal healthcare is very poor versus privately funded healthcare. So I mean, there's certain things I could certainly talk about, but I will be the first one to admit, like I'm just barely intelligent enough to talk about United States politics versus trying to dive into a whole other country's culture and politics as well. So, okay. So let's see. Wrestler backstories, where they came from, how their characters were developed. Jericho being in a rich Canadian family, or that's certainly possible. Yes. Let's see here. An in-depth review of characters, best matches, stories, rivalries, and chronicling a timeline of the career to start to end. One-on-one interviews with patrons turned into episodes asking specific questions, taking turns with you being the primary interviewer. Yeah, I like that. Talk with people who can impersonate superstars' voices during an interview. That one's not bad, but the problem is you got to find people that can do it on a level that's not embarrassing. Because to really nail a wrestler's voice is difficult to do. So that's a much more specialized talent that I think most of us do not possess. I certainly don't. Create a giant map of where hundreds of stars come from, and then create a tourist group to connect the dots of each town, listing what that said hometown is famous for. Yeah. I'm not reading everyone here because you created quite the list and I appreciate it. So I'll kind of cherry pick a couple more here. Put wrestlers in fictitious scenarios and explain how they would deal with them. Example, John Cena on a train in the 1950s when drivers were aboard. In-depth talks about how wrestlers train and live their life before and after a wrestling show. Let's see, one more here. Do a segment where you give a thumbs up or thumbs down to wrestlers starting in alphabetical order for all wrestlers in the last 50 years. Hot takes are welcome. For all the wrestlers in the past 50 years? Do you know how many wrestlers have lived in the past 50 years? Oh my God. I mean, hundreds, maybe more. I mean, if you guys want a 45-hour podcast, sure. Chris, I'm going to save this email. I'm going to pin this, actually. I'm pinning it right now in my email box because I may pick a couple of these ideas to kind of push Patreon a little bit harder than I have. All right. Let's talk to, thank you, Chris, to DJ. And he says, you would think and probably make the assumption that Drew might win the championship today in Berlin. Note this was sent January 9th, so before Drew won. And he says, because of the fact that SmackDown is overseas with a rowdy crowd rather than being in the States, the three stipulations for the 3 stages of Hell match seem to be in favor for Drew to win at least 2 of the 3, especially the final stage being an old school cage match. But then last week on SmackDown, it was teased that Cody would be facing Randy for the championship in the, quote, not so distant future after Randy put Cody on notice by saying after Cody is finished with Drew, Randy desires to be Cody's next challenger. Creative needs to just tease Cody's next title match and in a sense revealed the outcome of 3 stages of Hell with Cody retaining. But if the decision changes with Drew winning, what would the next destination for Randy be? It's a good question. Randy could still target Drew, I guess. But if Randy does challenge Cody without the championship, I think that takes a little bit away. They do have a long history, but I was hoping the belt would be involved. Randy and Cody could still happen, though. And I'm not going to be sad about it. I'd be happy they just got to it. Because there's so much history and the promos would be excellent. And the video packages would be next level. With all the footage that they could pull from. So, Cody, Randy could still happen. Randy, though, does seem kind of like and it's weird to say, he's kind of a lost soul right now. He's messing with The Miz. Who cares? He's messing with Trick Williams. That's just to get a little rub on Trick, and that's fine. I don't have an issue with that. I don't like his character right now, but such a small sample size. I'm not writing off Trick by any means. So that's going to be a program that's not going to last long. I think we'll get much more of an answer at the Rumble because Randy Orton at that point, he might have an interaction at the Rumble that would give you a clue as to where they're going. I wasn't surprised that Punk retained on Monday, but the finish was a bit odd with Breakker easily getting pinned. For the 2 straight weeks prior to the main event match, Creative booked Breakker so strong with him spearing Punk for 2 straight weeks to close off Raw. However, it looks like a setup for Breakker to win the Rumble and challenge Punk again for the title this time at WrestleMania. Yeah, I earlier, if you heard me, said I don't think that's going to happen with Breakker because I think Seth Rollins is going to take on Bron Breakker at WrestleMania. No title involved, just grudge, a pure grudge match. You could easily also have, you could have Brock Lesnar. But we keep forgetting about Brock Lesnar. He's certainly going to be around for the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania season. They didn't bring him back to have him skip this part of the year. The most lucrative part of the year, they're going to have one of the biggest names of all time sit out? No. Brock Lesnar is going to have a big say and likely a big moment or two in the Royal Rumble that could lead to who he's going to face at WrestleMania, which could be Randy Orton. That'd be fun. Randy Orton versus Brock. They've done that before, but they could go there again. You could have Brock Lesnar win and challenge Punk, dare I say, for the championship. It's a lot of fun things. Don't write off Brock. I should have mentioned him earlier. He's so in and out and then he's gone. And I could see Brock being a big factor. Lastly, SmackDown was great last week. A very well-rounded episode with multiple segments and new faces like Trick Williams, Jordan Grace, Matt Cardona, not Zack Ryder, and especially a repackaged Kit Wilson who has redefined masculinity, whatever that is. Anyway, SmackDown has at times always been the B show in contrast to Raw, but I think the identity that SmackDown should go back to is being the platform that showcases the up-and-coming stars, while at the same time being the platform that has the established stars and grizzled vets to help the up-and-comers to get over with the crowd. I look at SmackDown in 2002 as a prime example of the roster that had vets like Undertaker, Kurt Angle, Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, and The Big Show, just to name a few, alongside the up-and-coming faces, at that time, like Rey Mysterio, Brock Lesnar, and John Cena, just to name a few. The 2 issues with SmackDown as of late is that it's 3 hours, which is longer than some PLEs and all the Saturday night main events. And at times, SmackDown could be repetitive with the same storylines and meaningless title changes. DJ signing off. Have a great weekend. Yes, DJ, well, thank you too. The weekend's now come to a close, so I hope it was good for you. Yeah, the 3 hours sucks. And you can't tell me the creative in WWE is particularly excited about that either. You know how much more content that is to produce for an extra hour? That's a lot of time and a lot of segments to cover. And what you do to cover a lot of that is introduce new talent, longer matches, and more talent. That is how you cover it. But it's still a lot. It's a lot of time for people to have to sit in their seats. It's a lot of time to have the wrestlers, at the arena, which, I mean, they're there probably at 5:00. I think they're required to be there, but, more for the fans. It's long. And even at home, it's long. And for creative to produce a 3-hour show, really 6 hours of content with Raw, add NXT into it, add the PLEs that are now twice a month into it. It's a lot. It's a lot. So, all right. Thanks, DJ. We'll get to that Joe Hendry report. Right about now.
This is DJ Kuzmo back at it again on your Mailbag Show. Record you live on a Wednesday morning, and you know what time it is. It's time to
say his name and he appears. I believe in Joe Hendry. I believe in Joe Hendry.
That's right, folks. Joe Hendry is his name as I take it to my 78th episode of the Georgia Report. And like always, coming to you live from an undisclosed location. And like always, before I talk about Joe Hendry, let me talk about the continued storyline of the NXT and TNA collaborations with the NXT Invasion in TNA as we are gearing up for 2 big dates for TNA for this month of January of 2026. On Thursday, January 15th, it will be the premiere episode of TNA Pro Wrestling on AMC, the cable channel, and the streaming service AMC+. Later on that week, on Saturday, January 17th, it will be TNA's first pay-per-view of the year, TNA Genesis, live from Garland, Texas. But on the previous episode of TNA Pro Wrestling, which was the very first episode of 2026, Ariana Grace finally explains why she betrayed her father, the Director of Authority, Mr. Santino Marella, 2 weeks ago on an episode of TNA Pro Wrestling after the infamous 10-man tag team match in a steel cage. Ariana says that she had been living in her father's shadows her entire life, plus she mentioned that her father did not inform her that she was no longer needed on TNA's programming, because prior to that change, Ariana Grace had a role on TNA as the official liaison between NXT and TNA in managing their crossover partnership. She had this role on September of 2024, but now Grace wants to carve her own path alongside her partner in crime and husband-to-be in Channing Stax Lorenzo. Stax gets on the microphone and he speaks directly to the camera and says, "Hey Santino, she might have been your little girl, but she's my girl now, and sometimes she even calls me dad." Then we get an announcement that on the next episode of TNA Pro Wrestling, Stax will be defending his TNA International title against the former champion in Steve Maclin. We also get a major announcement, this time from Mike Santana, about his proposed TNA World title match against the self-proclaimed king of TNA, Mr. Frankie Kazarian, that it will be happening sooner rather than later. This big announcement took place right after when Frankie Kazarian defeated Beer Bronson to retain the TNA World title in dominant fashion. Mike Santana is seen in the crowd. He first congratulates Frankie, but he wasn't congratulating for his victory against Beer Bronson. Santana continues by saying it was actually from the breaking news that he got backstage from Santino Marella, stating that their scheduled TNA World title match will not be happening at TNA Genesis on Saturday, January 17th, but that the match will be happening on Thursday, January 15th on the premiere episode of TNA Pro Wrestling on AMC. And this is huge news because this is a possibility that Mike Santana could become the new TNA World Champion. And it's official, folks. On January 15th, a Thursday, on the premiere episode of TNA Pro Wrestling on AMC, it will be for the TNA World Championship, Frankie Kazarian versus Mike Santana. Now to Joe Hendry, as apparently his name was mentioned, but not actually mentioned, on the January 2nd episode of Friday Night SmackDown, live from Buffalo, New York, in which The Miz interrupts and he begins to air his grievances of 2025. And one of those grievances was about Joe Hendry by saying, "He who should not be named and his good time buddies ruined his last SmackDown of a terrible year and brought back the nickname, a very untrue nickname in The Miz's words, Tiny Balls, as the crowd chants, Tiny Balls." And like I mentioned last week, will this lead to another match of Joe Hendry versus The Miz, whether on Friday Night SmackDown or on an episode of NXT? Let's see as that potential storyline continues. But always remember this, folks, if you continue to say his name, he might just randomly appear. And he appeared last night on NXT New Year's Evil. We did get an appearance of Joe Hendry in 2 backstage segments. But before I talk about that, a couple of hours before NXT New Year's Evil, we get an announcement on TNA's social media that Joe Hendry will be scheduled to appear at TNA Genesis on Saturday, January 17th, live from Garland, Texas. But the question is, what will Joe Hendry be doing at TNA Genesis? Let's see what happens when we get to that date. Now to NXT New Year's Evil, which had 2 very interesting developments. The first one regarding Thea Hale and the NXT Women's North American Championship, and the second one is a very interesting development regarding Obafemi and the NXT title after when he defeated TNA's Leon Slater in the main event. But firstly, let's talk about Joe Hendry's new best friend and of course the NXT North American Women's Champion in Thea Hale, as apparently she was supposed to have her match against Blake Monroe to open the show. As Thea Hale is walking to the ring, from behind, all of a sudden, we get the appearance of Blake Monroe, who blindsides and attacks Thea Hale and beats her down with a steel chair and throws Thea into the barricade. The referees come to separate them and the medics arrive to check on Thea. After a commercial break, we see the general manager of NXT, Mrs. Ava Raine, furiously looking for Blake Monroe. When she finally confronts Blake backstage, she tells Blake 2 big things. The first thing is that Blake will not be having a rematch for the Women's NXT North American Championship. And the second thing is that Blake is now banned from the building. Could this be a tease that Blake Monroe, aka Mariah May, might be getting called up from NXT to the main roster, because it doesn't look like she might be appearing in NXT after this. Then after another commercial break, we get another appearance of Ava Raine, this time alongside Jordynne Grace and Thea Hale. Thea is begging and pleading for Ava to change her mind and lift the ban to have Blake Monroe come back so she could have a match against Thea Hale. But Ava tells Thea that she won't reward bad behavior and she is stern on her decision to not let Blake Monroe get a rematch. Thea then says she wants to bring back the open challenge for her NXT North American Women's Championship. Ava tries to talk Thea out of it, but Ava later decides to allow Thea Hale to institute the open challenge match. And speaking of the open challenge match, let's get to it for the NXT Women's North American Championship of Thea Hale versus a mystery opponent, and that was none other than Izzy Dame. She currently now is Bron Breakker's girlfriend. This match lasted only 10 minutes and 1 second, as apparently we have a new Women's North American Champion in Izzy Dame after when she delivered an avalanche spinebuster to Thea Hale to get the pinfall victory. Now to Joe Hendry. Joe Hendry is seen talking to Ava Raine and demanding a fight against Dale Lennox of Dark State for next week's episode of NXT in a no disqualification match. Ava does not want Joe to have this match because of the numbers games and the fact that there's more members of Dark State, which could make this easily a handicap match. Joe then proposes an idea to Ava. What if I can find a couple of badasses to even the odds against Dark State? Ava tells Joe, if you can find these guys, then I'll make the match official. We fast forward to another backstage segment featuring Joe Hendry as he is speaking to a badass tag team called OTM of Bronco Nema and Lucien Price. Joe is asking for their help to combat against Dark State, but OTM is not interested. OTM only cares about going after the tag titles that are currently held by Dark State. Hendry says, okay, how about if you guys help me out next week? You will both get a direct line to the tag team titles. OTM changes their mind and say to Joe, well, we'll see you next week. But can this unlikely pairing of Joe Hendry and OTM make this a win-win situation for both after next week's no disqualification match of Joe Hendry versus Dale Lennox? Let's see. But now we fast forward to the main event of NXT New Year's Evil of TNA's Leon Slater versus the NXT champion in Obafemi. This match lasted identically 11 minutes and 11 seconds as Obafemi retains the NXT championship after delivering a fall from grace pop-up powerbomb to Leon Slater. But the interesting development regarding Obafemi took place after the match, where Ava Raine is seen backstage with a group of potential NXT hopefuls that are currently on WWE's Evolve roster. She tells them that people like Lash Legend, Javon Evans, Trick Williams, Jordynne Grace are getting called up to the main roster. Meanwhile, on NXT, there are spots ready to be filled by you, and you, as she continues. However, we get the appearance of Robert Stone as he interrupts Ava and asks Ava, did you see what Oba did? Did you see what Oba just did? Ava said no. Then both of them rush out the office to find out. Meanwhile, the camera cuts to the ring with the NXT Championship belt lying in the middle of the ring. There's no Oba to be seen, but Oba's music is being played as the show comes to an end. This was possibly the final episode of NXT with Oba Femi as he is getting ready to get called up to the main roster. And this is the second time in NXT's history that an NXT champion relinquished their title and then move up to the main roster. I also have to say, after seeing Oba Femi at both NXT Roadblock and NXT Gold Rush last year, this guy is main event ready. He is main roster ready. He cuts great promos. He has a great presence. Oba Femi is going to be a future top guy on the main roster, and I can't wait to see when he makes his debut, most likely on an episode of Friday Night SmackDown or maybe Monday Night Raw. But whatever the case may be, as I close off this very memorable NXT New Year's Evil, if you always remember this, folks, if you continue to say their name in Thea Hale and Joe Hendry, they might just randomly appear. Always remember to believe, say his name, always remember the words that Joe Hendry says, anytime, any place, at any show, and most importantly, always remember to do this.
Wave your hands from side to side and say, oh, I believe in Joe Hendry. Joe Hendry is so prestigious.
Once again, this is your guy, DJ Kuzmo. Have a blessed week. Be kind to one another. Stay safe, my friends. Believe and peace.
DJ, thank you as always, my friend. Well said, well done. Hope you're doing well over there or down there in the city in an undisclosed location. Getting that song stuck in our head every week is an honor. Appreciate that. And I'm very appreciative of your segments every week. That, again, you're kind of our resident TNA review specialist here, whether you like it or not. I mean, that's kind of the role that you fall into. But it seems like you enjoy it, and I appreciate your analysis every single week, my friend. So, all right, I got to head out, guys. Got some other stuff to do. You know, being a dad is a bit of a time suck, but not complaining. It just is what it is, and I hope everybody enjoys the rest of their day. Thank you to the emailers. Thank you to DJ as always. And thank you to all the other listeners that don't call in, don't participate, but still listen. That's important as well. If you want to go ad-free, patreon.com/WWE podcast, or go to Apple and subscribe there, or Spotify and subscribe there as well. Video is to come. We're going to be adding video, guys, on Patreon and maybe on YouTube as well. We're going to be just doing, not long form. We're not going to be doing a whole show like this. This show's been over an hour now. No, that's not what we're going to be doing. But at least maybe short reaction clips, just news clips, 2 minute, 3 minute, 4 minute is something I think I can do and actually have time to do versus, oh, whoa, you're going to stream the whole show? No, I know there's a lot of streamers out there that just do every Raw, every SmackDown, every PLE they have their stream on Twitch or wherever. I just can't do that. But I think a video element is stupid for me not to do. And so keep in touch here. I'll be adding more to the Patreon page. And thank you, everybody. We'll see you in just a couple days to talk Monday Night Raw. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.